I was having a panic attack, and no one could tell. I sat down beside my partner, I took his hand, and I said, "Baby, I think I'm having a panic attack." He pulled me in for a hug, gently patted me on the back, like I had stubbed my toe and I needed comfort, which was sweet, but far too calm for the war zone that I was feeling on the inside. Because on the outside, I looked composed. I always look composed, that's the problem. We reward composure, we worship overachieving. But what if the version of you that looks like they're holding it all together is actually just hiding the part of you that never got to look safe? What if the part of you that makes everything look easy isn't doing well, but just practiced at masking the chaos underneath? That was me, and for a long time, I didn't question it. I just got really, really good at looking fine. I was a preteen when my mom got sick. She had a neurological condition that slowly ate away at her brain, and at some point it became a struggle for her to understand and respect my boundaries, which made setting them very difficult. I remember one day trying so hard to say no and to hold a boundary that mattered to me. My mom's only response was, "You're just so cold." It broke something in me. It made me feel misunderstood. It made me feel wrong. Like I wasn't the person that my mom wanted me to be. And that line stayed with me. "You're just so cold." Not because it was cruel, but because it confirmed what I was starting to fear. That if I protect myself, I will be seen as a problem. So I broke down crying. My dad came to comfort me, and he said something that I know was meant with love. He said, "You just seem so strong. I had no idea that you were in pain." But what I heard wasn't comfort. What I heard was, "You weren't supposed to break down." How disappointing. And so I became the person who could carry it all. I told myself, they will never see me break down again. But the thing is, when you learn to fake it early, you don't just trick other people, you start tricking yourself. Years later, I found myself still wearing that mask, even though it had become invisible even to me. Fast forward a couple of decades, I tell someone that I'm not doing great, and they look at me like I just said, "The sky is green." Have you ever been met with doubt when you finally opened up? But you don't look like you're in pain. Right, because I've been practicing this since puberty. That's the thing about high-functioning overachievers. We are rewarded for the very mask that keeps us disconnected from ourselves. I eventually realized that I had no idea who I was, what I wanted, what I liked, what I was passionate about. Everything I had ever done had been molded by the expectations of others and a deep need to be validated. I couldn't even make a simple decision without checking with someone else what they would think. And I didn't know how to break this pattern. I've now spent decades working with the hidden currents that shape our identities. And what I found is this. As I layered on more achievement, more composure, more control, I thought I was in charge. But the part of me running the show, it wasn't my conscious mind. Instead, it was a part of me operating in the dark. A part that I never really slowed down enough to listen to, and therefore couldn't actively influence. But I wasn't looking just for awareness. I wanted to understand the mechanics. How come smart, capable people keep repeating the same loops, even when they desperately want to change? To answer that, I had to look at how our subconscious and our conscious minds drive our lives. And to explain how this works, I like to use this analogy. Imagine that your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are on a road trip together. Your conscious mind, the one that sets goals, reads books, listens to talks like this one, is in the passenger seat holding Google Maps. Turn right here, it says. But your subconscious mind, shaped by old fears, survival patterns, and unprocessed emotion, is the one driving the car. And instead of turning right, it just keeps going straight. So what happens? Google Maps politely recalculates, right? It's okay, we'll just take the next turn. And this keeps happening over and over again until you realize you're not lost. You're rerouting. You're stuck in what I call the rerouting loop, a pattern where you consciously want to move forward, but your subconscious keeps pulling the wheel. Here's how the loop goes. You start with an insight. You realize something needs to change. I want a new job, I want a new body, I want a new relationship. Or maybe something like, I really need more rest in my life. And then you move on to an intention. You make a plan, the strategy's in place, and you start to make moves, but then you're faced with an interruption. As you start moving, an old fear arises. You start feeling that resistance in your body. What if I fail? What if I'm too much? What if I disappoint them? It can be loud, or it can be quiet, subtle, but powerful enough to steer you off course. And this is where the rerouting mechanism kicks in. Instead of understanding the fear, you make a decision not to move forward. And your conscious mind, trying to protect your sense of control, steps in with reason. Actually, this isn't the right time. I think I need some more clarity, maybe another certification, or perhaps somebody else's inputs first, preferably from someone who will tell you not to do the thing after all. And suddenly, reorganizing your pantry becomes your life's work. Am I right? The excuses, they feel strategic, maybe even self-aware, but what this actually is self-protection dressed up as logic. You tell yourself a story that you can comfortably live with and maybe even share with other people about why you didn't do the thing that you said you were going to do. And so you reroute. You stay busy circling the goal while never actually moving towards your destination. This is why insight is not enough. It's why strategy is not enough, because until the driver, your subconscious, is aligned with the destination, you'll keep finding reasons not to go. And you will use your brilliant, rational mind to justify why not changing was a smart thing to do. And until you stop trying to steer from the passenger seat, your fears, old beliefs, your pain, they're the ones holding the wheel. I work with the subconscious through what are known as shadows, a concept shaped by Carl Jung in his 1951 book, Ion. Though the phrase hasn't actually been found in any of his published writing, he's widely credited with saying, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Shadow work is how we bring what is hidden into the light. It's how we stop rerouting. It's how we meet the parts of ourselves that we usually suppress. For me, it usually starts with one question. Why am I not acting in alignment with what I say that I want? Allow me to share a couple of examples of how this has shown up in my own life and maybe in yours. I'm a middle child, and like many middle children, I learned that achievement equals attention, which you know is an expensive currency. I bring home good grades, I get praise, I get approval, so I kept doing it. But one day, the good grades became the baseline. Yeah? And then I had to do more, always more, just to stay worthy of this expensive attention and praise. But when I moved out, that voice, it came with me. Deep down, I wanted to rest, I wanted to slow down, but it was so deeply ingrained in me that if I did, I would lose my value as a human being. When I coach leaders and entrepreneurs today, I see this pattern all the time. If I take a break, I won't be deserving. If I rest, everything that I've built will fall apart. If I'm not producing, I'm failing. We think we're high performers because we're confident, but often we're achieving because we're terrified not to. That is the high achiever's curse. You perform worth, you perform excellence, you perform strength, but inside you're just hoping that someone will notice how tired you are and give you permission to stop. But nobody ever asks if the strong one is okay. We just all assume that they're fine. They don't look like they're in pain. But chasing achievement isn't the whole story. What very often fuels this endless striving is the belief that if we can just stay in control, we will stay safe. Which is why the second part comes next, the illusion of control. Achievement and control go hand in hand. When you're in control, you don't have to feel what you never allowed yourself to feel, such as helplessness, grief, shame. Control became my coping mechanism. But the thing about coping mechanisms is they work until they don't. Years ago, I entered a relationship with a man who absolutely refused to be controlled. We triggered the heck out of each other. I tried to manage him, shape him, express boundaries to him, but nothing worked. Control slipped out of my hands again and again and again. And what I found underneath, it wasn't just frustration. What I found was fear. I found a fear that everything would fall apart if I let go. I found a sadness, a loneliness that I hadn't allowed myself to feel. I found a panic that broke through as soon as I felt that control slipping. We learn to navigate life based on what makes us feel safe. And for me, that was control. It gave me the illusion that for as long as I could hold on, everything would be fine. But control is fragile, because the moment it slipped, it felt like a safety blanket being pulled out from underneath me. My stomach tightened, my mind spun, my body panicked, urging me to grab hold again. But the panic wasn't proof that I was unsafe. If anything, it was proof that control was never real safety to begin with. Control doesn't fix the pain. It just prevents you from feeling it for as long as you can hold on to that control. But the pain is still there, gaining power in the dark. And here's the problem. When we're chasing achievement and clinging to control, we end up forgetting the parts of ourselves that we abandoned along the way. We end up forgetting who we were before that became our personality. Which is why the third part matters the most. Remembering who we were. When I work with clients, I sometimes ask a very unpopular question. What parts of you did you have to abandon to be accepted? You see, we weren't born masked, we were born whole. Look at any child. They don't hold back their laughter, their tears, their wild imagination. They don't perform. They just exist as who they are until they're taught not to. And when we go back and look at who we were before that conditioning set in, it does more than just stir nostalgia. It shows us the map. The gap between the child who is whole and the adult who's performing, that is where the patterns live. The patterns that wedge our subconscious truth from our conscious choices. Somewhere along the way, we learn to filter, to become acceptable instead of authentic, to act calm instead of emotional, to be agreeable instead of difficult. Many high achievers had to grow up fast, and the cost of that speed was leaving parts of ourselves behind, such as our playfulness, our softness, our mess. But what we bury doesn't disappear. It waits for us to come home, and until we go back and reclaim it, we will live disconnected from joy, passion, power. Now, these three scripts, achievement, control, abandoning ourselves, they're just examples. They don't complete everyone's experiences, but they show us how we can start to notice our hidden currents. Because when we see what lives below the surface, we can begin to untangle those patterns that keep steering us off course. And when we do, something else opens up. We find ways of living more fully, of showing up with presence. So I invite you to look at, where do you feel that resistance or those triggers or that disconnection from yourself? Consider what shaped it. Notice what is underneath. This is where the alignment begins, where the conscious and the subconscious start going in the same direction. We don't heal by performing, we heal by feeling. We don't grow by staying composed, we grow by letting the control break down and sitting with that panic until it gives way for something deeper. So today I want to leave you with a few questions. Where in your life are you rerouting instead of facing what is uncomfortable? Where are you performing strength, hoping that someone will notice that you're not okay? Where do you cling to control, and what are you afraid that you'll feel if you let go? You don't have to answer today, but I do hope that something inside of you is listening. Because sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is let the strong one fall apart. Thank you.